everybody, welcome to another exciting episode of Table Talk. I'm Miles.
And I'm Austin. We have a great show for you today.
Yeah, let me read you guys the menu for today. Today we're going to be focusing on DM's perspectives. Whether or not that name's going to stick is yet to be seen. But we're not going to be doing corner pocket today, so it's a little off menu special. So today, DM's perspectives. We're going to be talking about on when and who should reveal a character's backstory. So we're going to discuss about that. We're going to talk about the best way to act and play a good NPC, and then the final thing. It's not a quarter pocket, but we're going to be talking about good traps and bad traps. How to use traps as a narrative tool rather than a mechanical nuisance. Specifically, I recently watched Mockingjay Part 2.
Which have excellent traps,
Yeah,
by the way. So we'll just
Yeah.
kind of use that as a point of reference to how we want to kind of, because it's cool to see it in movies, and then you like apply what you see, because that's what all DMs do. They see something and they apply it into their story.
Well, it's just like write what you know. You like DM what you know.
Yeah. So anyway, back up to the top. So we're going to be talking about when and who should reveal a character's backstory. So basically the premise of this is, should it be more in the DM's hands when their character's backstory be revealed, or should it be solely on the players? So I would like you to start with this. What do you think?
Oh, what's the question?
The question is, who should reveal a character's backstory?
Okay. Who should reveal a character's backstory? In my mind, it's the character. That's my default stance. As a DM and as a player, I want to. I guess I'm a little torn. This is a really hard one you gave me. As a player,
that's why I wanted you to start. This stuff bounce off what you were saying. Cause it's tough for me too.
As a player, I want to have a level of control over my character, right? But as a DM and as a player as well, I realize how interesting it is when the DM kind of throws something in from my backstory, and then I have to kind of like play it. It can go, if you leave the player's backstory in the player's control, it can be good because then the player just gets to do what they want with that. But it can also be bad because it could go nowhere. If you leave the backstory in the DM's control, it can be bad because then the DM's going to make you reveal stuff in odd places where you just don't have a response ready or something.
Yeah. And
if you leave the DM in control, then you're taking away control from the player, and they might not like that as well. But it might lead to something narratively interesting, and the player might like that. So
yeah. So kind of what I started talking about this is that our session, which was this past week, was kind of our season finale of sorts for Pomegranate.
Yes.
And one of the characters, I'm going to very simplify this because we don't have like a couple hours to talk about this. So one of the characters, he was a zombie, and he couldn't really remember his memories. But earlier, about like 2 months ago, he learned something that his best friend, he didn't really know for that long. He's only known it for like a year. Right. She thinks it's been her entire life. Right. So the villain was like, hey, you need to tell her the truth. And then he's like, no, I can't say it. So the villain told him instead, which was me. Right. And it kind of brought up this thing where it felt like a good kind of place to keep the distrust between the group and this character, which kind of made him want to join the villain, which is going to open up a whole can of worms later down the line.
Well, the character's conviction is to know more about his own backstory, and the other guy with with his wing, wings. I was gonna say the guy with wings, but so the villain, he kind of offers all those secrets to our undead character, and our undead character really wants to know. So his conviction was, I will betray the group to figure out my backstory. Whether that's temporary or permanent is yet to be seen. But the group's very vindictive, so there's some other players at the table who are very much like, I will never forgive you for this.
Yeah, so one of my initial ideas was to be like, oh, you're back at the next session, and you like hope about something. but after the session, talking to him, they will kill this guy on sight. So like me revealing this little bit of backstory that he was hiding from them could lead him to never playing that character again, which we've talked about and we've discussed it. But like the fact that I made him reveal this part of it, and now everyone's just like, you lied to us this whole time, and he's kind of been known to hide stuff before. So to add something onto that, and it was my fault, where now everybody wants to kill him and will kill him on sight. So
now here's the DM weight is on your shoulders.
Yeah, and and he was like, yeah, like it was really cool. I love the way you did it and everything, and I'm like, thanks. But at the same time, I was like, yeah, but now you have to play a whole new character. You got to come up with a whole new character that hopefully the group likes and will be willing to work with you. So
that's fair. Yeah. I mean, but that's kind of the Matthew Colville way of thinking is like always have a character prepared for these kind of things.
Yeah, and and he has like 10 characters.
Oh, awesome!
Made. Like he was like right immediately. He's like, hey, how does this sound for backstory? I was like. Like that's, but the cool thing is that it actually has a tie-in to my previous campaign.
Okay.
Because he used to be at a monastery, and that's where 2 of my old characters were from.
Okay.
So they're gonna be the ones who saw it. Like I sent him out on his
adventure.
So it's kind of like a cool tie-in to the other one, which other people still want to play, but it just hasn't worked out.
Right.
So I was like, that's kind of a nice little tie-in. I don't know if the group's gonna like you at all because they're very distrusting right now.
Right.
So kind of weighing the pros and cons of that. So.
Okay. So like that's the end of the campaign. You decided. I mean, you guys talked at length of this, so obviously the player was okay. And I think if the DM's gonna do a reveal, kind of give the player a heads up because I've not gotten the heads up before. And then the DM was kind of one of the characters that was near and dear to my character died. And he kind of kept throwing it at me to see like my reaction to it, and I wasn't. It kind of threw me off. We weren't playing the campaign consistently, and so since we weren't playing it consistently, I was already kind of thrown off to how I should think about how the character should play this, whatever. And he hadn't developed a true relationship with this other character. He essentially had what amounted to like a crush and then like a very like entry level friendship with this other character. So it was like trying to throw shock and awe on something that like never really developed. Yeah. So there's a lot of that's definitely where you like figure it out with your player if you're gonna want to throw something into it. Don't tell them all the details, but say, hey, would you be okay if I did something drastic?
Yeah. Well, so along with that, for this character in particular, I had mentioned him before, like, as a character, because he kind of chased him down in a different town, like, talked to him for a couple minutes.
Okay.
And he, was like, hey, I need answers. And the villain said, what did he say? He said, there's a choice you'll have to make soon, and I hope you make the right one. And I kind of hinted that something was going to happen between him and the group. So I kind of...
Oh, that was the tournament.
That was a tournament.
Okay.
Yep. So I left these, like, these hints and these subtle hints, just like slowly building up to it. So I didn't want to take him completely by surprise.
I'd call them hints. I wouldn't call them subtle.
Okay, they were not subtle, but no one got them though.
Right.
That's the thing is like, so there was a like betrayal at the end, and I like hinted it the entire way.
Oh, okay.
And they thought it was a different character.
I would say they're vague hints, is what I'd say. It was hard to kind of parse them.
Well, in the beginning, it was a lot more
on the nose.
On the
but
nose,
when you're at the beginning of the ramp, you don't know what's at the end. It's kind of hard to see what's on the horizon, right? Like,
yeah. And I mean, but like thinking back to it, you're like, that's why you did, and that's and then it's kind of like one of those cool tie-ins. But
that's true. Yeah, once it all clicks, you're like, oh shit, how did I not see this? And that's what the other players were saying constantly. Yeah. And I'm over here just kind of punching stuff.
Yeah. Like, but it'll be really cool to see like how the group moves forward,
right?
Because you guys really back to like the backstory a little bit,
right? Like
you guys don't really have a whole lot of backstory stuff,
right?
So you kind of have to like create your own future and like build it off of that.
Okay, that's very different. But I'm intrigued. I was going to say it's kind of I don't think it's common for a lot of the D&D campaigns to really consider backstory as much. There's been a lot of campaigns that I played that I just played character. You know, there's not even much of a story to it. We're just kind of running through and punching stuff. But the thing that I'm getting at here is that like it's so cool that you have this like this idea that like you invest into the player's backstory. I think that's a very good way to DM. You know, I don't think the backstory should be 3 pages and be the most important thing. We discussed this.
Yeah.
But I do think that a good DM kind of cherry picks some moments from the character's backstory and makes that important because that really draws the player in because this is something they came up with that you agreed to. So now we're sharing the table and it's like a cool moment. I'm just thinking in previous campaigns where you know I've kind of been allowed to build the world with the DM. But I'm also thinking back to previous campaigns that I've run, some of my entry level ones, where I didn't play into the characters' backstories, and I feel like it was a big miss, not really focusing on who their characters were. I was kind of like more focused on the mechanics of the game because it was one that I made.
Yeah, one of your homebrew games.
Yeah, and so I felt you know there was a discordance in the group, and I was talking to people afterwards, and I don't think I fully understood at the time that it was. Like a lot of it was that they weren't getting to express the characters that they had made. And so since they weren't really getting to know each other and the plot was just kind of happening, the discordance never went away. Actually, you can apply business terms to this. There's 5 stages of team building: forming, storming, norming.
Wait, norming like just
like normalizing.
Okay.
Shoot.
Come on, man! You said 5.
There are 5. Like I think performing is the 4th one. I'm probably getting this wrong at this point. And then the 6th one is when you're done and you're like settling down.
I was like, you said 5, it's 6, but yeah.
It's this is the 5th one, but I think it's conforming. But that doesn't sound right. But I know those first 3 are important.
Yeah.
And the first 3 are important because it's.
What are the first 3 again?
It's forming, so the team forms.
The team forms.
And the team storms. So we're brainstorming, but it's also kind of a storm in the sense that we're trying to get used to each other. A leader is trying to be established, and we're all trying to participate.
Okay.
And once we're all participating and we've gotten into our workflow, we become normal, right? And so now that we're normalized, we can start to discuss ideas and share ideas and start to knock away the extra stuff.
Yeah.
Right? It's like now we're making decisions because we're all on the same page. And then I actually think the next one is performing. Now we're doing the work.
Yeah, now you're actually doing it.
Now we're dynamic and it's not so much that we feel disjointed. And now that I've been a player in some disjointed campaigns, I feel really bad for running a campaign that was disjointed. But and I feel like the source of that, going back to our original process, is like get the player's backstory in there because that's like who the player is. So then the character. Yeah. And so then the players feel like now we've all shared our characters together and we can build off of this.
Yeah. Well, so the reason that I apply backstory so much is one, I love backstories.
Good.
Like that's like what I do. But the other is because like I kind of use it. I don't say like as a cheap way, but I use it as a way to like have the characters go towards a certain goal. Like if, I know this town from my childhood, I'm like, okay, you go there and something's happening there. They're like, I know this place really well and I need to go and fix it. Or I'm like, oh yeah, you have a mother. Your mother's dying. And they're like, I gotta go fix my mom. Like, and so it kind of like allows more like quests, and the quests is how they get together as friends. And they kind of And if you have a character,
now they're supporting each other because it's their personal life.
Yeah, but so
not just the quest.
Yeah. Sorry. So like that's actually a real good point. Is that it's them. It's not just the quest. It's like their life and whatnot. But because one of our characters, his mom is getting hurt and his mom is dying, and so they had to go on this huge quest to kind of fix it. But everyone can kind of buy in to you wanting to save your mom.
Exactly. It's a cause we can all get behind, and then we form stronger bonds because now all the characters have done this thing together that was like so important to one character that it just that's like that's human nature.
Yeah, it's just human nature to want to help each other out to fix your problems.
Yeah.
Like, and I mean, because it is different from being like, oh, my guild hall wants money.
Yeah, or
here's the same effect.
Here's the grand quest. Here's this villain who's going to kill this village. Sure, I don't want the village to die, But like, if my mom's in the village, now
You're
I
like,
really
oh, my
don't want the
mom's
village
there.
to die. Now I have
Yeah.
that extra incentive. It's like it's okay to be heroes, but there should be a little bit more to it than just that.
Yeah. So, yeah. So just in conclusion with that, just because we kind of went on a side tangent.
Yeah.
But when you do reveal it, do it in a way that the character is okay with, if the DM's doing it, and just kind of do it in a way that creates intrigue and kind of adds to stuff instead of like detracting from what's going on in that story.
Right. Just ask yourself a lot of questions. I think just ask yourself like, is this compelling? Is this something we can all rally behind? Yeah, like make it purposeful. I guess.
Yeah. Don't be like,
it's not the easiest thing to do.
oh, you're fighting a dragon. Oh yeah, my mom was adopted. Like,
right. It should definitely fix.
Like, it doesn't make sense if it's just disjointed. It just doesn't work. So, onto us the second thing.
Yeah, second topic.
The best way, or just not even the best way, just how to play good NPCs.
The best way to play good NPCs.
So
I started the last one, so you start this one.
So for me personally, and this is kind of a very broad overview, so this is for DMs that haven't really done it all that much.
Yeah.
Have something about that character, about that NPC that is unique. So have them own a shop, have them talk with a lisp, just have something that makes them unique, so that if you do mess up, because me, in the beginning with all my NPCs, they all sounded the exact same.
Right.
But since they all had something about them that's different, it allows you to play them a little bit differently, and even in your standard voice, the way you talk and the words you use change drastically how they're viewed.
Right.
So just use your judgment and make them unique in a way that makes sense, but just play them like you normally play it, like just a normal person.
All right, I'm going to counterpoint you on this one. I don't think you need to play them in a way that makes sense. Players really get in, like, once you're talking to NPCs, that's almost one of the only moments of brevity that your characters are going to have throughout the entire campaign, so it's really natural for an NPC shop moment to become very, like, just relaxed. And so you can really play with it like a comedy or something. I mean, we talk about Nog Greaves. I was playing him pretty straight-laced. Somebody threw out something about baby skin. It was very bizarre. But like I just kind of rolled with it, and suddenly I had this, instead of this normal blacksmith who was just a little unorthodox, I had this like basically, if you ever watch My Little Pony, I hate that I have to make this one, this thing, or if you're into Marvel Comics, it was like the Pinkie Pie or the Deadpool of the campaign, where he just like did a lot of nonsense stuff, and I think that like leaning into that made him really fun. I don't think you need to do that for every single character, but I don't. You can make your characters fit in universe, but you cannot. Like I think that's the fun of it. Is like, once you get to play the NPC, now you can have fun with it. So like whatever ideas you had that would work for that, whatever ideas you have that you would want for that, just go with it. Yeah.
Like you're allowed to have your NPCs be crazy and wacky. Like make them memorable. Yeah. Like I did this activity with all my players. Like, okay, what are your 3 favorite NPCs from the campaign?
Right.
And I got a different answer from everybody because they all like attached to certain features and they all like recognize people, but I try to make them all unique enough that they all like different characters and stuff. And so it was kind of like a cool way to just have them be memorable, because I think that's the number one thing you have to do is make them be recognizable and be memorable.
Yeah, when you're sitting at the table, you're playing for the memories of the campaign. I mean, I talk about my early campaigns a lot. I'm gonna be talking about my early campaigns a lot.
Yeah.
And in one of my earlier campaigns that I ran, the NPCs were memorable, but it's not enough to just make them quirky. Like, that's fun, and like some of them will become memorable just from that. But once you have too many quirky characters, then they all kind of like blend together.
Yeah, they all kind of become the same.
Yeah, and well, they're distinct, but the way to have a lot of quirky characters and make them memorable at the same time is to get those quirky characters to be involved in the story in some way, in the narrative that's being told, or be related to the main character, or have some kind of significance to the main character. Like or it's not main
significance
character, but the protagonist
is the big thing though. Is how to be important, so that you can talk to him. Like it's like, hi shopkeep, bye shopkeep. Like it's like, oh hello Rodrigo, how are you today? How are your children? It just kind of like creates that different dynamic.
Well, and so this is another thing. It's tangential, but it's important to talk about with this topic. Is so there's the going back to quirkiness versus significance. They can be significant and not quirky, and also be just as non-memorable because they're just kind of there. They're just kind of a quest marker.
They're just kind of just doing nothing.
In that same vein, I think there should be some NPCs who are just like, here is the blacksmith shop. These are the items he has. Just like to get you through it.
Yeah.
Like I like the kind of weird wandering guys who have maybe some magical items and it's kind of you role play with them as you shop, or like the consistent town NPC. I like that role play with that. But in some instances, it's like I just want a greatsword, so I just want to go to the general armory.
Walk in, walk out with my sword, and I'm good.
Yep. And I mean, you know, a lot of people poo-poo metagaming, but I think the best way to do that is a DM at the table instead of actively playing an NPC. Just say like, hey, I want to buy a greatsword. It's like, okay, this is how much a greatsword costs. All right, so I go to the blacksmith. I buy the greatsword. It's like, all right,
and there's also a way to talk about that with your party. Just be like, hey, like, do you want me, or are you just good to just buy it? And like just having them say, oh yeah, I just want to go in and get it and be done. You're like, okay, there, we're done. You have your greatsword. Like you walked and you bought and you left. Because you don't want to slog it down by role playing this really interesting character when actually like you just want a sword and you want to go.
Right. And so that goes back into playing NPCs is like there's a time and a place to play an NPC, and there's a time and a place to just be the narrator and guidance for the group.
You walk inside the smith and get a sword. The end. Like,
yeah, absolutely. Well, because I it doesn't always happen, but I've had instances where it's like now we gotta have atmosphere in every place, so it's like it's like I'm on vacation, but I'm sitting at this table, just kind of like, all right, I want to do something else. But it's like, I've gone to Paris, and it's like, here's the shops over here, and this is what every single like tabernacle and everything, all these little trinkets and everything hanging on the walls, and you walk by a bunch of kiosks, and then and you're getting into the intricacies of each kiosk and every item that's hanging on the thing, and it's like, all right, like I just kind of wanted to buy. Grappling.
Well, I mean, it's funny that you do reference Paris though, because that's where you and I have both been.
Yes.
So like, but yeah, because if like, this is the kiosk, this is the kiosk, this is the kiosk. So you like walk by like, this place has T-shirts, this place has that, and like just very brief descriptions of it, and you're like, wait a second, that Eiffel Tower, I want to go there, and you go there and you get like a more descriptive of that place because that's what you want to see. Like that's what's interesting in the city.
Right, having that sort of magnifying glass effect to the region, that really helps you when you're trying to decide how much ambience you want to put into a game, because you do want to have a big set piece. You want to remind people and keep them in that kind of zone where they're really dialed in and they feel like they're immersed. You want to get them immersed.
Immersion, yeah.
And so one part ambience, but just enough. And then one part playing good NPCs, and there's a lot of options there, and we can only really cover it in general terms because there's not a best fit for everyone. You kind of need to know who your players are too.
I mean, I guess so. What is your most memorable NPC that you've done?
That I've made?
That you've made.
Not the one that I like, but the players have
remembered
the best.
Yeah. And just talk about kind of how you played them and what made them memorable.
Well, I already mentioned Nagreeves, so I don't want to cover Nagreeves again. So I guess I'm going to try to think of what the second favorite one is.
I don't know a second one.
Yeah, it's hard.
Is very memorable.
Yeah, I was going to say like the blacksmiths typically in our group tend to be the guys who are.
Started with Smitty.
Yeah,
Smitty was the first that I named, and everyone was like, "Oh, Smitty!" And then all of our Smiths now, because magic items are a real cool thing to have, and a real cool thing to make yourself, and to have the one you can make it with.
Yep,
makes everyone super happy.
It does. And that was what Nagri said. And I don't really need to go into. He's wacky. Like none of his forge pop process made sense, and his weapons were impossible. I just thought about the orcs from 40K and how they can like telepath items together from scrap, and I was like, I'll just make the guy who's that. As soon as everybody was like, oh, he's got like baby skin back there. I hate that I have to say that publicly, but
like, dang, baby skin.
Yeah, and so it was just like really zany. The I think the one that resonates the most with me, and I only know one character who really liked this character, was Will Travell. You weren't a part of Tome 2.0. No. Yep. But Will Travell.
Is this the guy with the van?
He's the guy with the van.
I know him though.
Yeah, exactly, because he gets talked about, and I think only our one friend really talks about him the most, because the rest of the characters were like cool. I had some like non-binary characters. I think one of our players really liked Nadine in there. I think a lot of our players really like Nadine, but I'm not going to talk about Nadine because Nadine isn't as interesting as Will Travell in my eyes.
Will Travell.
The only thing Nadine has is like it's kind of like a non-binary sort of. There was some representation there that was appreciated at the table. But the Will Travell was really cool because he gets introduced with this character Lilith. You just kind of meet him in this church. He's like this unassuming sort of. He's walking around with them and he punches some stuff. And he's just this big, dark guy in a spacesuit. He doesn't have a helmet on, but he's just wearing a spacesuit, broad daylight, middle of Paris. Everybody's like, what's going on? It's post-apocalyptic Paris, so it's like... and so they're walking through, and there's kind of this weird warp tunnel stuff going on, and he's augmented his van to do some of this stuff, and nobody knows he has a van at this point. Mm. And then suddenly his van warps out of a portal, and he leaves the group. He just goes chasing after his van. And I remember that being one of the most memorable parts of that campaign. I attached it to the NPC because without that weird gimmick of that van, he wouldn't have been as interesting.
Yeah,
and that moment would have never happened.
He has a van that can jump through dimensions. You're like, holy crap! Like that's really cool.
And so there was this whole scene where they get in the van, or they had to go through a labyrinth, but then the van, Will Travell managed to get the van, and he comes out of a wormhole again, and he's like, hop in, I don't have a really good control of this thing, and everybody's like, oh, okay, so we run in and get in, but then the bad guys are chasing them on foot, the van's not moving very fast, and so they have to throw all these, it's like, what's in the back of his van? It's like, there's a fire hydrant, there's a frying pan, there's a chain, and so putting these wacky inventions together just knock these other dudes out. And the other dudes are failing checks, so they're beating themselves up, tripping over each other. And the last guy is about to get run over, and then the van warps out. And so you see the last guy, he's like, "Oh shit!" This is it. And then van just vanishes.
See, I honestly think I'm going to steal something similar to that.
Yeah.
Just because it's such a goofy, fun thing.
Exactly.
That it has to happen.
Right.
Because there's always those things that you're going to need to happen in every campaign. You got to have a princess you got to save at least once.
Right.
Okay. And you got to have a zany, wacky character that everyone loves.
You have to have a princess that you save?
Oh, a damsel in distress.
I don't think I've ever had a damsel in distress in my campaigns. I'm all about female empowerment, my dude.
Okay, fine. What if there's a dude that needs rescuing, though? You gonna rescue him?
I guess that's... Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, but I just don't tend to make campaigns that have characters who need rescuing.
Well, I mean, not characters. Maybe there's someone in town that needs rescuing or something like that.
Well, that's sorry, an NPC that needs rescuing.
Yeah.
You know, I've never run a campaign where somebody needs to have
Shinori needed to be saved.
I've played in one. I haven't made one.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay,
you had that happen in one of your campaigns.
But I'm saying I have never run one. I've never made a campaign where there was somebody who needed to be rescued.
No. What I'm saying is that Shinori needed to be rescued, and we left the town to go rescue her. I mean, she had died, but we left the town to go rescue her.
Right. I've rescued players. I'm just saying it's not essential to the campaign.
Okay, fine. We can differ on this.
I'm saying the ones that I make. Not the ones that I've played in.
Yeah, you didn't play in that one. You were the DM of that one.
Not Shinori.
Yeah, you were. Okay, no. Not
You're
Shinori.
getting
I'm
the
getting my
names
names
wrong.
backwards.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I did make a female who needed to be rescued. Ah, damn. I've been played.
What's her name?
Gosh, it's been so long. It's complicated.
Been so long.
It was very like.
I swear it was like a shh. Thing.
There definitely because there's Madala.
Oh,
it wasn't Madala.
It was Madala.
Madala didn't need saving, but Madala had a pupil who needed to be saved.
Yeah.
And the pupil was like something close to Shinori. It wasn't Shinori, but it was a complicated name. I'll give you that.
Yeah. Link in the description below. But anyway, so why all your people have been memorable is they stick out during the campaign, but they're also entrenched enough in the campaign that you're interested. So that's kind of how you make a good NPC, at least from my perspective.
Okay. Did you not want to cover your favorite one? Is it Smitty or?
Well,
I know we're running close to time, but
so I have a couple of NPCs that I like. We're all running short on time, so I'm going to be very brief. I do like Samaje Pops. Samaje Pops will always be one of my favorites. I know everyone hates him, but he'll always be one of my favorites. Right. He's basically
he's a sugar-coated asshole.
He is a smith that creates sugar weapons, and he's basically like this old ripped grandpa with pink hair. That's kind of the best way to describe him.
Yep. And he's got a bad attitude.
He has a bad attitude to people who steal stuff from his shop, but you guys stole stuff from his shop.
I don't think I stole anything.
You didn't, but your party did.
I hate getting lumped in.
I know you hate it, but like everyone was just being a douche to him.
That's
fair. So he was a douchebag.
That's fair.
It was just like human. Anyway, so like I like him because he's kind of one of those. I mean, he was kind of a douche, but there's also ways in the future to like create cool stuff with him.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, it's kind of one of those interesting tie-ins that might tie in later. Who knows?
Yeah.
But so I like him. I have a lot of NPCs that I've done that I really like, and not everyone else in the group likes. But we'll get to that another time, though.
Sure.
So,
okay.
on to Mockingjay.
Yeah. Well, let's not call it that. Just on to our next topic.
On to our next topic that involves Mockingjay.
So I was watching Mockingjay Part 2, and they're going through the town. Spoiler warning for everybody who hasn't seen this 3-year-old movie.
I think it's older than that.
It probably is, but I'm gonna be wrong either way. Yeah, this ancient
relic of a movie.
Yeah.
Go on.
It's in the second half of the movie, and they're finally doing something, because the first half of that movie is a lot of talking. It's a lot of stuff from Part 1. You gotta go back and watch the first movie. Movie that's part of that slow. Anyway, you get to the part where they're going through the town, and there's like these traps. They talk about how like the games masters like setting up pods so the rebels have to deal with these. And like, I don't know what the rebels were doing, because there were a lot of traps that the safe group ended up running into. There were a lot of traps they ran into.
There's a lot of and they were cool traps.
They're very cool, but like, were they going an alternate route? I wasn't paying enough attention. I kind of had it on the background, but I was paying attention when the traps were on. I was like, oh, that was something cool happening. But I just have this hitch that it's like, why did these traps already get triggered? Anyway,
because they were the first ones through.
No, they were the last ones through.
Were they the last ones
through? They followed the rebel army, so I don't get it.
I thought it was okay. We'll have to watch it and talk about it later.
Right. So the idea there is that like the rebel army kind of went some different ways, and then they went some different ways, and it's like, oh, they didn't activate these ones. There's very much a setup one where like some machine guns come out of the wall and they dodge them, and then like they walk forward a little bit more, and it's like they're triggering a trap every 5 seconds.
Yeah, they grab heavy legs.
They step, so they trigger the machine guns. It's like, fine, okay. They move forward. Immediately, their thing doesn't pick up this other pod. One dude steps on the thing, explodes. And, like, another dude explodes, like, blows his leg off or something. Like, main dude's gonna die. Then they're like, oh no, this other dude got their leg blown off, screaming. It's been screaming for, like, 5 minutes. Suddenly, the one person's like, oh no, they're screaming! Runs over across the thing.
Yeah.
And then triggers another trap. Big gates close in this pavilion. Black water starts pooling up and, like, filling the space. And they're like, fuck that, we ain't touching that. One guy falls into black water. gets ripped out by some, like, I imagine it's like nanomachines or something.
Yes.
And like kind of strung up, and he's screaming. The idea is the machines are supposed to give you maximum torture for whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
And it was really cool narratively because this is what I've been trying to get to. I know I take a long time to get to my points, but
it's a cool story.
The narrative thing was that imagine Katniss and Peeta are like the player characters. It's like a 2-player campaign. There's a couple other guys who are important, but it's not
2-player campaign.
Yeah. And everybody else in the group were kind of unimportant NPCs, but they're there, and so they're showing how the traps work. And so by showing the players how the traps work or what the punishment for the traps will be, like this isn't always the case. I have some different use cases I want to cover about traps, but like you have a much more narratively interesting trap, and then you don't suffer trap grog, which is like the worst kind of slog is trap slog, because it's like the DM's sitting there chuckling for an hour, not giving you any clue, and some of those puzzles are inane. And one of the main D&D storylines is like Mines of Fandalvar. There's one where you have to hold a chalice and step into a fountain. Why?
And there's no way to like know.
There's no way. There's no level of investigation whether or not we were like failing the checks or not. I don't know if there's like a clue that we missed earlier, a book that we should have, or something we should have just picked up on. But like we tried everything else with this chalice and this fountain. We knew they went together. And somebody finally put it on their head and walked into the fountain. Because we were just fed up. We were absolutely fed up. We were like, we don't know what to do. And so he's like, I'll put it on my head and walk into the fountain. And then like it's like, okay, now you're gone. And we like, but we all had to play in character, and the rest of us were nowhere near him when he does this. So it was just a pain in the ass. Like just this. So and that whole campaign was marked by like a bunch of just shitty traps. I just hated them. They were very textbook D&D traps, and they were bad. And it was sloggy, and I didn't like. And I think you can have these cool trap systems and make them big spectacles by just throwing some NPCs into them,
and have them die by it.
Yeah, have them die by it, and then the players can figure out how to not do that.
Oh, you're like, oh, he just got stabbed. Well, let's not do that. Like
yeah, or like if they're clever players, like he falls on a pit of spikes, so I walk over his body. You know, like.
Yeah, I mean, hey, if it works, it works.
Right. But I think I was watching that, and they're like doing these traps, and I'm just like, man, all these traps are very cool. Or they were traps in the way that it's not so much a thinking puzzle, and it's more so we need to get out of here. Trap is going to kill us. Well, very much the trash compactor of Star Wars. We need to find a way out ASAP. So now there's a time limit, you know, and that like adds suspense and tension.
Yeah,
and
adding a time limit though to some traps is the most nerve-wracking thing in the world for players.
Well, yeah. How much plot armor are you giving them? How dangerous is the trap? Yeah,
you're like, do you have 30 seconds? They're like, what do I see? What do I see? And you're like, you see a hole. They're like, ah! They're like, and the timer's still going. They like have to roll checks to get out. Like, I did one of those once, and they almost had a heart attack. Like in real life.
Jeez.
I was like, okay, let's not do that again, except in really intense situations. Just because if you do it too much, then it kind of gets overused.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Do it every once in a while, though. That's when it's the best.
Right. Well, I don't think like I just think traps aren't talked about a lot in D&D outside of just the books that include them.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to give people some use cases of like, here's some cool trap stuff.
Okay.
Okay. Well, false traps are good. I've had a lot of fun campaigns where it was a trap laid in place, and it ended up that one of them was just like false fire, and so we were doing everything to avoid the flames, and then ended up triggering them in the end, and it turned out it was like pointless. Those are good traps because you didn't waste any time, but also it's kind of like you didn't need to waste the time doing what you were doing. You didn't really waste time because you still progressed.
Yeah.
But it's just like you feel like an idiot, and I feel like that's like.
It's like, oh.
He got me. Yeah. But I kind of liked it. It was like, dang. So there's that's just another example of a cool trap. I don't know if have you had any instances where a trap has been really, very, very sloggy for you? Awesome.
All the campaigns I've been in, the traps haven't been very sloggy. I did run one with my very first group, and they had to solve this riddle. And so there's a trap outside of the door, but they had to like go inside. And once they're inside of the like,
this is
gateway,
bagpipes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, bagpipes and quarterstaffs.
Yep.
So they made it up to the door, and they had to solve the riddle that was on the door. Well, so the thing is that I hadn't planned for them to get that far yet, because they kind of like cheesed their way through it. So they made it all the way to this door, and the door.
Cheesed their way through it. From what I heard from the players, they knew the riddles.
Well, yes. So they knew the riddles, but they were meant to like look at these traps. Like, so in my mind, that there's this huge trap going on, and they were like, "We're not ready for this. We're gonna come back at a later time."
Oh, you were trying to Metroidvania it, but then they went in.
Yeah, and so then they went in and they made it through, and they had to solve this riddle at the end. Well, the problem is that it applied to information that they didn't have yet. So they were trying to solve this riddle, and it was like a riddle that they couldn't solve. They couldn't get it, and like I kind of made it easier so that so it was just like a simple word one, but they couldn't figure it out. But they were so determined to spend half an hour there trying to figure it out. And like I was having fun with it, and I was like, "Are you guys having fun?" They're like, "Yeah, we're trying to figure it out." And I'm like, "Okay, as long as you're having fun with it." But the second that they don't have fun with it is when I'll be like, "Oh no, go back!" Like just kind of
circumstance happens, something chases them out, or
yeah. But because they wanted to solve this and they were so dead set on solving it that they stayed there for the entire time, like I would almost consider it a slog, but I don't consider it a slog because they're having
fun. The players are having fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's probably the closest I've gone to it. I mean, I have had quite a few traps, and most of my traps are like gotcha traps.
Right.
Like ones that I'll like beat you in some goofy way or like mess with you because I have a god of mischief that makes trap moves. Yep. Vin Blastine. Thank you very much.
That's cool. I like that you have like a trickster deity, and a lot of the like world's traps are that. I think that's a good way to like implement traps and then have them like have a consistent theme. Put a face to them even. Then they just don't feel so like random.
Well, everyone. So after the first one, because they had to fight balloon animals, and they killed the balloon animals, and they like just fall around, and then balloons go up, and on the ceiling it's like, "This trap room brought to you by Vinny," and everyone is like, "Fuck you!"
Yeah.
So from now on, whenever they see anything related to Vinny, they just go, "Fuck Vinny!" Like just, and it's just like it's kind of cool, but it's also kind of sad because like that's all that he's known for, and there's a lot more to him.
Okay.
And everyone is just like, "Oh, this trap god, we hate him so much." And
I kind of like that.
It kind of plays in.
Yeah, I kind of like that service level. I mean, if they want to explore Vinny, they'll figure it out.
Yeah. But so it's like I enjoy having a character because I do like traps. I do like real goofy traps that aren't like, "Oh, I step on this weight, and this hammer comes and swings."
Right.
Like, I like, "Oh, I step on this, and all of a sudden 5 little children up appear, and I got to figure out which one's a demon and which other ones are actual children."
Oh, like, okay. Those
really
are challenges.
Me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That
no, those are clever too. I like challenges because there's a little bit more interaction, but it is sort of still a puzzle. But you still like the Adventure Zone did this really great thing where they had the smartest like machine in the world. They're going through these like different rooms and completing these different challenges. And this one challenge is like you have to outsmart this basically riddle machine. They do this with like a train in Stephen King's The Dark Tower. And they have to outriddle the train. They have to like trick it into figuring out something that it doesn't know. And so this robot has the same thing. And there was something in the Adventure Zone where there's literally like a memory eating fish, and so nobody knows what this thing is unless they're like inoculated by the fish. And so the players were trying to figure out how to outsmart this damn little robot. And they couldn't. And then at the end it was kind of like just say the thing that nobody has knowledge of unless they're inoculated by it. And so they sat there the whole time, and like somebody finally came up with it in the end. They're like, "Oh my god!" Like it was like right in front of them the whole time, but they never thought about it.
So how did they beat it?
They beat it by So there's like basically a magical thing that blocks knowledge of these like 11 artifacts, right? And so because the players in the group have gone and done this other trial, they have that knowledge now. They have the knowledge of these 11 artifacts.
Oh.
But nothing else can have that knowledge. And this machine had knowledge of everything in the world, right? But it had never been
to the
trial. Right. And so not going through the trial means that robot can never know what that thing is, whenever those things are brought up, it puts static in your mind. And so the robot didn't know what it was, so hence it was outsmarted because it couldn't answer. It's like, hey, what is this thing? And then they won. And it was like the simplest puzzle, but I was duped by it too. I'm like, how the fuck are they going to outsmart this robot?
This is going to sound really dumb, but it sounds like a Jimmy Neutron episode.
Okay.
Where Jimmy builds this robot to do his homework and like to make his life better.
Okay.
And the way he beats it is he's like, hey, I need you to do my homework, and he's like, okay, and he looks and it's a poem, and it's just like, yada yada, rose are red, violets are blue. I know this number is pi, which is equal to 2. And the guy's like, that's not right. Pi is 2.1.
Oh, but then he starts listing off pi. It never ends.
Yeah, and his head explodes with numbers, and I was like, ah.
It's like you have to cheat.
Yeah,
basically, I kind of like those ones where it's like outsmart the really smart thing. I cheat.
They're like, what is love? And they're like,
they tried that one. They tried that one, and then it was like it started listing the definition for love, and they're like, shit.
They're like, it is a chemical that makes you fall in love and want to bang. That's for love.
Well, not so eloquent. He doesn't put it that eloquently. He's like, love fuck. That's what the robot says. Shut up, boss. Okay, I want to do a lightning round. I want to mention 3 different traps because I came up with them. Well, I didn't come up with them, but I thought about them as we were talking about this. 2 of them are from Kill 6 Billion Demons.
Okay.
Really cool traps, especially on my whole use case and narrative stuff with Mockingjay.
Yep.
I'll talk about the narrative one first. There's a door that when you get to it and you try to unlock it, it takes 4 hours, but for the best locksmith in the world to unlock this lock, right? But when the alarm goes off, you've alerted the palace guard. So you have to get through the door so you can keep moving forward or else you're going to die. Palace guard are going to come and get you, right? The way to unlock this screaming door, it's literally just a big screaming head, is to give it a human sacrifice. So the party beforehand, as effed up as this is, they had hired a locksmith. They feed the locksmith to the door.
What?
It is the most wild narrative thing ever. Because they literally do that whole heist thing where it's like, here's our gang, we're getting together. The locksmith, this guy, this guy, this guy. They're going through, they're all doing their roles. Some people are dying just because they're like either petty because they're all demons. Or they're just like, or they're just falling for the traps. And then they get to this one door and it's like, hey, now we get the locksmith out. And then it's completely flipped on its head. You don't think that's what's going to happen at all. And then, like, there's this one maniac in the group and he just tosses her in there and you're like, whoa! It's just this big, like, like
that's just nuts.
How are they going to get past this trial? It's like, just do this. Whoop. Yep. And it's like, they had that plan from the start, but they were like, they told the story narratively enough that they had you're like, oh, okay, locksmith, got it. Like, you know, like, it was so obvious that they, like, hit it in the obviousness of it. Next use case.
Okay.
Same thing. One of the earlier trials. They walk into a room. Room is filled with, like, furniture and other things. They keep... This might be, like, a pretty tried and true trap trope. They walk further into the room. Everything in the room is a mimic. Everything in the room is a mimic. So they have to fight a bunch of mimics, and then they get overwhelmed by mimics, and they end up having to, like, kind of cat rope across some other section. But it's like, it was a cool trap because it's like you're walking through a room, and maybe you have, like, some of the furniture shuffling or something, and Claire's like, what is this, like, haunted? Is there, like, ghosts or something?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, it's all mimics.
So I actually did something like that, except it was Beauty and the Beast.
Oh.
Right? So how, like, everything's a mimic. So they ended up killing Mrs. Potts and killing Lumiere. Oh. They killed everyone.
Brew of Pomegranate is savage.
Brew of Pomegranate is the most savage group. I mean, they were such a fun group of people,
but
when you look back at it,
they're
like,
ruthless.
They poked this man's eye out, broke his eardrums, cut off his tongue, and left him for dead. And just left. And they were like, oh yeah, he can't tell anyone about us now.
Oh yeah, they really fucked him up.
Yeah.
They didn't mean to fuck him up that bad, right?
No. So, like, I'm like, he has 1 health left. They're like, okay, I'm going to hit him. And they got a 1. I'm like, okay, don't hit him. And then they left. I was like, you can hit him again.
Oh, they didn't give him the sweet release of death.
No, so now he's super pissed off and he wants to kill him. And they're like, this guy, I'm like...
That's a good, like, future villain. Let me get my last point out.
Yeah,
the last one is the one I told you about last time. This is one of my favorites because of how bullshittery it is. but I know a lot of people don't like it because of how bullshittery it is. And it is the I don't know what the specific thing. It's a Pathfinder thing. It's a trick where the players are dead the whole time. They go into a room, they trigger a trap, and then after they trigger the trap, nothing happens. So the players assume that the trap was a nothing thing. It was just like, oh, this is benign trap that was previously triggered, whatever. They continue walking. Once they get to the final encounter of the session, there's a beholder. The beholder uses one of its eyeball powers to dispel magic. All of the characters instantly die. So you might be asking yourself at this point, what happened? Well, when the party triggered the trap, the trap was a trap that instantly kills you kind of, but ghosts your spirit into this entity that can interact with everything else, but it's fully arcane. It's an arcane automaton of you. Has all your memories and everything else. You're dead, but now you have taken the role of this automaton. Alright? The automaton is you in every aspect. Still has to rest, still can take damage, still gets cut, everything else, but it's made of pure arcane magic. But it's magic. It is a magical effect. So anything that dispels magic will instantly make you gone. And so
do they all just die, or
Yeah. Well, and I think in this instance, the guy who was telling me about this, only 2 of the party members had been hit by this trap, but it was a 3-player party, so the other guy couldn't fight the beholder by himself, and they lost. But it's you're setting the party up for failure, but I think it's still this interesting narrative thing, because you were playing the whole game as a phantom, and you didn't realize it. And then when the DM gives you that reveal, it's whoa. And you can be salty about how you lost the campaign or whatever, and I don't know how cherish that. I wouldn't do this with hey, I have this level 18 character. Can I go into your campaign? Oh yeah, here's some bullshit. Months. You're gonna die.
Just instantly die.
Yeah, if you start a new campaign, level 1 character, do something weird like this, and just don't get them past level 4, because they really fucking suck. You can scale down beholders. It's Matt Colville. How do you fight a Gorgon at level 1? You can scale down a beholder, and it's just a good gimmick. It's a good gimmick. Don't let your characters play level 20, and then they were a phantom the whole time.
Imagine the entire campaign happens, and then they died on the first session.
Yeah.
Ooh, boy.
It's cool. But maybe they want to win the campaign. Know your players. Yeah. But that's the final trap.
Yep. So that's the final thing. So yeah. So those are our 3 points. Yep. We got through talking about backstory, talking about NPCs, and talking about Mockingjay.
Yep.
Well, traps. But I like saying Mockingjay. It's a fun thing to say.
Little boys that look like girls. Traps.
Anyways, okay, so we don't have our next week planned. We're kind of going to be moving this to more of a bi-weekly thing.
We might. There are 2 things in the air right now, and as far as podcast posting, if you're listening to this,
wow, congrats to the one person out there.
Yeah. We might be moving to a radio format pretty soon for at least the duration of the summer. And it might be bi-weekly.
Yeah. Who knows? We'll see. We'll keep you posted.
We'll probably still post stuff here.
Probably, yeah.
The technician says you can download that. They'll send you download links and stuff. So.
Well, then heck.
Yeah.
Well, we're still going to be posting this all as often as we can.
Right. But wide range appeal.
Wide range appeal. But yeah, so look forward to providing more content for you in the future.
Yep. All right.
Well, that's Miles. I'm Austin.
I'm Miles.
That's Miles.
That's awesome.
Yep, this is Austin. And we will see you later. Talk to you later. I don't know how to close this.
We'll talk to you guys next time on Table Talk.
Bye.